time to sign up for these sessions. It's the end of the year, the holidays are here, and the last thing that we want is, you know, to be more stressed out about work than we need to be. But we will be coming into tax time next year, and I am just as guilty as everybody else of putting the bookkeeping tasks and reconciliations and things at the bottom of the pile, maybe doing some online shopping instead. And so, you know, this is really, really timely as we come into the end of the year of just like, what does that financial checklist look like? How do we go into 2018 well prepared, knowing what we're going to have to put together? And then the sessions that we have coming up after this talk about proactive things that we can be doing in our businesses, in our law firms, to set ourselves up for success, whether that's the reports that we're going to be running on a regular basis, or how to better manage cash flow and accounts receivable so that we don't have those wild cash flow swings that are never very much fun. So I know you've got a ton of experience in this area. Thank you for putting together the presentations that we'll see over the next few weeks. And I'm going to turn today over to you, and I'll be jumping in with questions and any areas that I might be able to help with, given my own experience working with firms and as business owner.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for the intro, and yeah, jump in anytime with questions.
Yeah, and just for everybody's benefit too, Micky heads up the team at Kahuna Accounting, which provides bookkeeping services and also just in general financial services to law firms, which I'll let you tell them a little bit about as we get going.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll talk all about that, and I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate what you're doing too, and thank you for doing what you're doing. I think, you know, with working with so many law firms like we do, we see a lot of the challenges they have is being overloaded with tons of information and tons of people giving them advice and telling them what to do, and a lot of times they make bad choices. And so a voice like yours telling people, guiding people, educating people is much needed. So thanks for letting me be a part of that and having me on. And yeah, I reached out to Chelsea and said I would love to do a webinar about accounting as we head into the end of the year, and she said, no, you need to do 3. So I guess the people want more accounting. So I will.
To an hour, Micky.
I know, but they'll be short and sweet, and we'll get into some good stuff. And like Chelsea said, we're going to do 3 parts to this, and as you can see on this title that Chelsea came up with, this is like the scariest one. So it's got the word nightmare in the title, and we'll get into some of the more foundational pieces related to accounting towards the end of the year. Next week we're going to do a second that's going to be more about how to make 2018 awesome and how to use your numbers to guide you and help you grow. And then, like Chelsea said, in the third one, we will get into cash flow and how you can actually take more money home to yourself, which is a great thing, and how you can use your financials to guide you to doing that. So with all that said, this first one that I'm going to go through today, financial fitness, how to avoid a 2018 tax nightmare, is going to be a little more painful and a little more skewing toward the negative. So just getting that out of the way right now so you know. But without going through the pain, going through the foundational pieces that you have to get into place, none of the other stuff will even matter. And so this is probably the most important and probably the most practical, you know, and something that you can take what you're going to hear in this today and do something about it right away. And so that's where we're going to go to kind of set the stage and let you know what to expect. What I want to do, especially by the end of the whole series, but even by the end of today, I want to show you how to have an accounting system that you don't hate. And I think for most people, for most law firms especially, accounting is such a thing to be avoided, a thing that we don't want to talk about, don't want to deal with. And if we do deal with it, or even if we prioritize it, it's not with much excitement or joy that we do it. It's something that we just kind of get through. What I want is to show you how to have an accounting system you don't hate, and that it actually helps you grow your law firm and achieve your goals, achieve the things you want to achieve. And we've seen that happen with law firms, but it's so rare, and it's so rare to find it. And most attorneys have kind of given up or kind of assumed that all accounting is something to just survive and get through and endure, which does not have to be the case. So who am I? As Chelsea said, I am the Director of Business Development at Kahuna Accounting. And so Kahuna Accounting works with law firms and entrepreneurs all over the country to simplify their accounting. We handle the bookkeeping for them in the day-to-day, allowing them to focus on doing the things they want to do, growing their firm, working with clients, doing the other millions of things that small firm attorneys have to do. So we take that off their plate, and we have specialized working with law firms for really the last, I guess, 4 years. It's become a place that we have, I don't know, it's a niche that kind of found us and that we embraced, and it became something that was a great fit, and we've decided to spend most of our energy working with law firms, and it's been good. And so we have seen these common challenges. I'd say we work with several hundred firms, but to think of how we've gotten there, we've probably had conversations with thousands and thousands of law firms. And so we've seen the challenges, and we've seen kind of what you're dealing with, and that's what I'm going to go through today is a lot of those common challenges. I put up this picture of my family because I think that's what people do when they do these presentations. That shows you, especially on a webinar, like, is this even a human, or is this just like a robot that's like behind the scenes and I can't even see him behind a screen? So I put that up so you know that I'm a real person with a real family and a real life, especially because it's accounting, and you can see that I have a soul and not just a accounting robot behind the scenes. So I put that up also because my wife, who's pictured there, started a business last year, and she does fitness classes, group fitness for ladies in our town. And we started that in October, and she's done a really good job, and she really likes it. But it's funny what happens when you start that type of business. You see a lot of things, and one thing that happens is people, like, when they talk to her, they know that she leads fitness classes, and they like kind of feel guilty just talking to her, and so they kind of like make excuses or have questions or talk to her about why they're not doing as good as they should with being healthy. And she's like, I never asked about that. I'm just going to church. That's not really what I'm here to talk about. But it happens. And the other thing that happens is when we hit January of last year, our membership exploded. She had more people than she could ever handle, and she had only had the business going for a few months, and then it exploded in January. And she was like, man, this is the greatest business ever. This is going to grow so much and do so many great things. But what was weird, and what we came to find out is not weird, because this is what happens in every fitness business, by March, most of those members had gone away. And what had happened is a lot of people made New Year's resolutions, said, I'm going to go work out, I want to be part of this group, and by March they kind of lost their momentum. So with that said, we have this title today, Financial Fitness, and I think it's interesting because it's kind of similar to fitness with having good, solid financial skills in accounting. Is like to have it, to be fit. Most people we have the skills needed, which aren't a lot. You just really need to move and eat decent. Like, we have those skills, and we have the motivation. Like, that shows up in January when all the people come. They're coming for a reason. They're motivated. They want it. They desire it. And so when I talk about accounting and I say, you have to just want it. You have to be motivated. That's not good enough, because a lot of people are motivated, and motivation doesn't get you to the goal. It doesn't get you there. So we have to figure out what's missing. Why do we have the skills available to us to have good accounting or good fitness? Why do we have the motivation, but then it doesn't happen? And so today we're going to dig into what's missing, and really what needs to happen is we have to have the tools and the steps and the proven process that allow us to do it in a simple way. If it's not simple, we won't do it. And so what we're going to go through today is how to make that happen. So our goal is not, I want to be clear about this, it's not for you to become a numbers person. You don't have to be an accounting guru or a math guru for it to be meaningful and worthwhile in your business. And a lot of people make that mistake, and we hear that all the time from lawyers. It's like, I'm just not a numbers person, and so this is just not me. You don't have to be, but you have to know how to keep track of your business and the scoreboard of your business, and there's ways to do that without being a numbers person or to even like accounting. You don't have to like it, and you don't have to do account reconciliations and things like that. You have to know what to look for and where to get it. So our goal is not for you to be a numbers person and not for you to love accounting. Our goal is for numbers to be a clarifying guide to take your firm where you want it to go. If you think about why do attorneys hate accounting, so I said that kind of nonchalant, like it's almost just a fact, because I've seen it so often that, you know, attorneys say, I'm not a numbers person, I don't like accounting, I really just hate getting involved in it. Why is that the case? Well, the reason why is really, it comes down to two things. Number one, it's a waste of time. So it takes time, it takes effort, it's dealing with minutia and spreadsheets and things that you don't really want to deal with because we're all pressed for time. And I want to be respectful of that you took time out of your day, which is, you know, a packed schedule, to be on here. And I understand that. You know, for law firms, for attorneys in small firms, there's never enough time in a day. And so anything that takes up your time needs to be taking you toward where you want to go. And so for accounting, it's like a double whammy. It's number one, a waste of time, and number two, it's not helping you in any way, shape, or form to getting to what you want, to getting to your goals, to making your firm stronger, to helping you drive revenue, to helping you with cash flow. And so if that's the case, then of course we're going to hate it. Of course because it's a waste of time and it's not helping us. And so what we have to do is change both of these things. We have to make it not a waste of time, to make it something that happens efficiently, happens behind the scenes, doesn't take away your valuable time, and then also helps you get what you want. Those two things change. All of a sudden, I think people will think a little bit differently about accounting. So our goal is for the numbers to be a clarifying guide, take you to where you want to go. And so the question is, okay, how does that happen? So what I'm going to do today is really focus on number one here. There's 3 steps involved, and the first is most important, is you have to simplify things, because if it's way too complicated and there's so many moving parts and things to track down and things to keep track of, and it becomes this mess, and it's never going to happen. It has to be simple, A, B, C, to get to what you want, or it won't happen. Then once you have a simplified system, you have yourself out of the day-to-day, not wasting time, then you can focus on what matters, to laser focus and not just have a jumble of meaningless numbers, but actually focus them in on driving towards what you want. And then third, acting like a financial pro. So when you have a financial system that is simplified and that gives you numbers, then what does that look like for you as an attorney? Like, you have to have your finger on the pulse, but you don't have to be a numbers person. What does that look like? How does a person act who's in control of their financials but not directly involved in the day-to-day? And so those are really the 3 steps on how. And what we're going to do today is focus a lot on number one, because to simplify the system and create a system that works is the foundation that you can then build on to start to really do some of the exciting stuff that you can do, and that we'll go into in the next session. So we're going to start here with simplify, and I like the concept of the 80-20, how you can use 20% of the effort to get 80% of the results. We don't have to know every single number, every single line item on the profit and loss statement. What can we do to simplify things and actually make this easy? And so I'm going to walk through a simple process on how this happens. But first, in order to get to that point, I told you this one's going to be the most painful. So I'm just going to reiterate that. We're going to get into some of the negativity here, but it's going to come all around and become a little more positive. I promise that. It's the holiday season, so I don't want to just be negative. I want to bring cheer into your life. But we have to get there. So to understand how to simplify it, we have to understand, why does this go wrong? Why does this get off track in the first place? Why does accounting not make sense to anyone, or they don't have a system that works for them? So first is to establish that, yes, things have gone wrong. And if these are not true for you, then maybe things aren't so bad. But I think for most attorneys, this is the case. Especially right now, at Kahuna Accounting, the amount of people that reach out to us for services is a gigantic increase in November, December, January, and February. And the reason why is because we don't prioritize our accounting throughout the year. Then we have tax time, and we dread it. It's terrifying, and it's a nightmare. We have to file extensions. We have to clean up the historical information from throughout the year. And so that's a problem. That's not a good thing. You don't need to be in that situation, because now when you're in that situation, you're doing the same thing we just talked about. You're wasting time, and you're wasting time on things that aren't helping you. And so we need to have a system that doesn't cause that. It doesn't cause us to dread tax time, file extensions, and have this painful process. Most law firms are looking backwards. You're always looking in the past, and so your numbers don't matter. These things have already happened, and you're wasting time on spreadsheets and data entry and things like that. Like, this is a problem, and we need to fix it. The other thing that happens is there's a huge disconnect a lot of times with law firms between what we say we want and what is actually going on in reality. And so for us, we put up this this form on our website just to help us understand what our potential clients or our prospects, what their goals are. And we asked them what their current monthly revenue is and what they want their monthly revenue to be 12 months from now. And what was crazy is almost everyone that filled that out said that they wanted to double their revenue, like almost every single time. But what's interesting is when you kind of dig in on what does doubling your revenue look like, a lot of firms don't really understand what that entails or what that means. And I have an example that I always use because this came up actually last year, but there was an attorney who had been kind of growing steadily and was working with us to, I think, so let me get the years right. This was in, I'd say, September of 2017. Needed to get her 2016 information cleaned up so that she could get her taxes done that she had filed an extension on for 2016. So we're cleaning up 2016 information. It's September 2017. Finally get the year wrapped up, ready for taxes. And when the reports are done, she comes to find out, oh no, my 2016 revenue is down 20% from what it was in 2015. And we're just now finding out about it 18 months after the year started. And what makes things even worse is we're now 9 months into 2017, and so there's a good chance the same thing is happening again this year. Whatever has caused the revenue to decrease, we're not able to put our finger on it because we're looking so far backwards. And so there's this disconnect. Like, I want to double my revenue, but I'm not actually managing and tracking the numbers to make sure that I actually have that happen. And so where firms get stuck is they not only are wasting a lot of time and they're not getting real financial information, the information they have doesn't help them in any way, shape, or form into getting what they want. And so how does this happen? How do we get into this mess? And there's really three pieces that cause it. Challenges with tools and technology and different systems, challenges with roles and who's doing what, and then challenges with expectations and what we expect to happen versus what is actually going on. So we're going to break that down, and then we're going to get into some of the good stuff. So probably the number one thing that we see is this concept of multiple systems. So for most law firms, this is what happens. You have a practice management system that works for managing your client, and you get the accounting system that you use for your operations and for putting together this entire financial picture. You really need both systems. You need both. You need to use the practice management to manage your clients and to invoice them. Then you need the accounting system to track that information and also the bank information. But what happens is you end up adding all these systems together, and they're all saying different things. This is the most common thing we see. I've got Clio for practice management that's saying one thing. I've got QuickBooks for my accounting that's saying another thing, and I'm looking at my bank account, it says something different, so I don't even know what's really going on. And then you add on top of that, you've got a payroll system, you've got a payment processing system, and this whole thing just becomes this nightmare. And the reason this happens, and I'll get into this in a second, is because it's never started correctly from the beginning. And so when it doesn't work from the beginning and you keep adding things together, it doesn't work. And so this becomes a major confusion point, because you need this practice management system, you need to get that out, you need bank accounts, obviously, you need accounting, but if they're not all working together, how do you ever get that organized? And so this is where the time waste happens, the inefficiency happens, the frustration happens, because all these systems are necessary, but they don't work together, and you don't really know what to look at and how to make them work. And so you're entering data into all of them, and it becomes this real huge problem, and it's inevitable that things are going to get behind. The other thing is, it's like a different language. And so this, and I'll get into this more with the roles, but when you receive your financial reports, so even if they were coming to you on time, is it saying anything that matters to what you actually care about? Because what you actually care about when you started your firm was something, and it's different for everyone, but whatever that was, a lot of the secrets to getting it come in your financial reports, because you need cash flow to grow your firm. You need cash flow to benefit your family. You need increased profitability to make sure that you can keep doing what you're doing for an extended amount of time. But when you see your balance sheet and your profit and loss statement, they're not talking about those things. They're not telling you anything about those things that you were looking for, and so it's a completely different language, and therefore is going to be ignored. I'll talk about the goals in a second when I get into roles. So then here's the next thing. So we have, the first issue is all of these systems not working together, and you never get started properly. But then on top of that, you have problems with roles. So inevitably, you get to the point where you're like, okay, bookkeeping, I don't like it, but I have to do it because it's something you need to do to stay compliant. I've got to deal with trust accounting and make sure that's all tied out and correct. And of course, I have tax time, and so the more I can keep up with things day to day, even though I'm probably not going to be able to stay up with it completely in real time, at least I'll be somewhat organized for the end of the year. And so this is kind of the progression that a lot of firms go through. I actually shared this slide at an event I spoke at recently, and someone came up to me and said, yeah, I went through this entire process, this entire list. But this is a lot of times what happens. So we need to do the bookkeeping. And so first, the attorney does their own bookkeeping because you don't have enough time in the day. You've got to wear all the hats in the firm. You've got to do whatever you can and scrap and claw to get this thing off the ground. I get that. And so you do your own bookkeeping. It's not going to be great, but you're going to handle it because someone's got to do it. Then I actually have this out of order. Then, okay, the next step is I don't have time for that anymore, so bring my spouse in to do the bookkeeping because I need someone to do it. And so they're the person I trust the most, and they can just add another thing onto their plate, and it'll help me out a little bit. Then that can become a very contentious situation pretty quickly, and you realize it's not the best situation, but you have this shiny new paralegal who's helping you out, and they've got more time, so why don't they just do the bookkeeping? And so the paralegal ends up doing it, even though they're not really trained to do it and don't really like it, but it's something that's got to be done, and so then they do it. Then you finally get an office administrative person, and I always feel bad for this person because they end up getting thrown so many different tasks and things, and really anything that could be done ends up getting thrown to this person, and so they're wearing like 100 different hats, and so of course they end up doing the bookkeeping, and then eventually you hire a part-time bookkeeper who may or may not work out, and if they don't work out, you're back at square one. And so these challenges with the roles kind of exaggerates the problem even more. And so when you go back to the systems challenges and understand you've got the practice management, you've got the payments, you've got the payroll, you've got the accounting, you've got the bank accounts, and all this stuff has to tie out, all this stuff has to feed into each other. To put that on any of these people is kind of a recipe for pain and challenges because the top four are not trained to deal with that, and then number 5 is kind of a coin flip on whether or not you get someone that can navigate all of it. And so it really becomes a challenge. The other thing that people do is work with their CPA. And so the CPAs are great. You need a CPA so that you can have taxes done and make sure your entity's set up properly and everything like that. But then to have them be your de facto bookkeeper, it becomes problematic because they're not looking to get into these details day to day. They're looking to take the information that has happened and record it and get your taxes done. And so when you're looking for them to be your bookkeeper, you're still missing something. You're not recognizing the transactions day to day. You're not making sure that everything's tied out. You're going to inevitably be looking back 3, 6, 9 months in the past, sorting through your entire year in order to get taxes done. And so none of these things work together. None of these things make sense. And so this is why it becomes such a disaster. So this is my favorite slide, where when we get into the negative stuff, is called the recap of problems slide. So there are problems. These systems don't work together. We have the wrong people in the wrong roles. Time is wasted, and everyone is miserable. Everyone I've just described in this accounting process is miserable. And it's because these systems don't work together, and more importantly, we never got started properly. And the thing about not getting started properly is I can completely understand it. Like, when you're first starting a firm, your number one priority should not be to make sure your accounting system has a proper chart of accounts, proper integration, and is ready to go. Like, you don't have time to deal with that. And so what you do is someone told you to get QuickBooks, and so you get it. You start working with clients, you start billing them, you start getting revenue in the door, and you get the firm off the ground. That's what you should be doing. The only problem is when you neglect accounting right from day one, which everyone does, eventually you grow into a real legitimate firm. And so 2 or 3 years later, you've got real money, you've got a real team, you've got a real process for growth, but you still have the same accounting system you started from day one. And fixing it and organizing it, it just becomes this total mess. And so everyone is miserable. And so what we've got to do now is transition and help everyone kind of improve and get out of that misery. So how do we do that? I shared it before, but the key to doing that, the key to making this something we can actually enjoy and work in, is to simplify. So this is a quote that I really like. To attain knowledge, add things every day. To attain wisdom, remove things every day. And so when you look at accounting, this can't be something that we're adding to your plate, because if it's an addition, it's a new thing, we're not going to follow through. We've got to get there by simplifying, by removing, by making things easier. So this is what most people think of when they think of accounting, is this blurry, meaningless spreadsheet of numbers. And if that's our view of accounting, we're not going to get anywhere. It's not going to help us. And if that's the end result of this, we're not going to be motivated to simplify things and break it down. This is complicated. This is overwhelming, and this is not meaningful to me. And so how do we simplify it? That's what we have to do now. And so what I'm going to walk you through is really 7 steps that we go through that we call the simple financial system. And it's a way to make the system work for you, work behind the scenes, but also be a guide to getting to where you want to go. And so today I'm going to focus more on the top 1, 2, and 3 of the 7. I am going to walk through all of the 7, but since Chelsea wanted me to do a full 3-part series, we got to say some good stuff for the next one. So I won't give you all of it today, but we're going to focus primarily on 1 and 2 and how to get there. So the first one.
Thanks for not overwhelming us, Mickey.
What's that, Chelsea?
Thanks for not overwhelming us.
Yeah, it would be a lot to take in. So we'll take it one step at a time. But I think today we're going to get into some pretty good stuff, and this is really the foundational pieces to make everything else. Everything else is easier. Like, once you solve those systems issues and the day-to-day bookkeeping issues, the cool stuff actually gets a lot easier. So the first step in this is to put bookkeeping and data entry on autopilot. And so I'm assuming most of the people on here, I know there's probably some staff members on, but most people on here are attorneys. And as an attorney, dealing with bookkeeping and dealing with data entry should be something that you never, ever, ever do. You should be focusing on growing your firm, leading your firm, and serving your clients really, really well, or making sure that they're being served really, really well. And so what we see a lot is that attorneys are having to be very much involved in the bookkeeping, whether that be actually physically reconciling transactions, or more likely is just dealing with spreadsheets and dealing with data entry and dealing with bank statements and doing all these things. Like, that should never, ever be what you're spending your time on. And so to have a good system, what you've got to do is have that time and billing, that practice management system that I talked about. That's where you live. You live in that system, and you make sure that your clients are being served, that your bills are getting out in a timely way, in a consistent way, so that you're getting paid and getting revenue in the door. That's your focus. So you focus there, and you get the bills out. and you track all the work that's being done for clients and the expenses that are being built up for clients, and you keep that there. You get your bills out. From that point on, you need to have someone that can take everything else and deal with it behind the scenes. So that would be the bookkeeper role. So the bookkeeper then would sync from your practice management system. A lot of them integrate, and we'll get into that later with some of the systems that you can use. But for most people, most law firms that I see, they have a practice management system that they like, that they're comfortable with. That's a good thing. That's step one. If you have that, then you need to be able, in a best case scenario, integrate that with your accounting software. And so when that integration happens, your invoices are going to sync over to the accounting system, so you have an accounts receivable being tracked versus the cash flow. But more importantly, what happens is your accounting system then becomes the hub that everything goes around. So we talked about all the different systems and how it can become confusing. The way to make it simple is to have your accounting software be the hub that then pulls everything in. So your practice management syncs into the accounting, your bank account syncs into the accounting, and now what happens is you have your bookkeeper that is pulling information from all these different tools. So you as the attorney don't even have to deal with it. They should have access to these tools. They should have access to your bank accounts and bank statements, pulling them all into the accounting software and then reconciling regularly. And so when we talk about bookkeeping and data entry and reconciling, the analogy I use a lot of time is it's like doing the dishes. So doing the dishes at your house is something that is not really a big deal. Like if you do it every day, it's not a big deal at all. It's just something you do and you get out of the way and it's over and it's done. But if you are to put that off and not do your dishes and wait 3 days or a week or 2 weeks, now doing the dishes is kind of a big thing. It's kind of a serious process because you've got stuff that's probably moldy and stuck to the plate, and it's going to be really, really painful. You're going to be scraping a lot, and it's going to be awful. And so the way bookkeeping works is the same way. Like if you just do it regularly, and maybe not every day, but hopefully every week, just keep it up, keep reconciling, keep doing it, and that's what your bookkeeper should be doing. They should be pulling all these systems together, pulling all the information together, reconciling regularly, and so what you are able to do as the attorney is focus on the things you want to focus on. Focus on your clients, focus on getting your bills out, focus on bringing revenue in, focus on your team. Meanwhile, your financial stuff's just happening behind the scenes. And then you'll have to answer some questions here and there, but it's all happening behind the scenes, and you're able to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on without getting into the data entry and getting into the day-to-day. And that's how we recommend things get set up so that you can have peace of mind. The other place this comes into play is with the whole trust accounting thing. So if you have a practice management system, let's say Clio, that's really fantastic for managing your trust account. You can keep track of your clients, what you've done for the clients, what you've billed, what's left to be billed, how much money you have in your IOLTA, and how much has been earned and not earned. It's great, and you can pull those reports. But what you need to be able to do is match that up with what the bank is saying, what the bank accounts are actually saying. And so your accounting system provides a third check between what's going on in your practice management system and what's going on in your bank account. Because as good as you are at keeping up with Clio, there's times where things get missed, transfers get missed, deposits get missed. Your accounting system, when you're watching it day to day, you catch all those things and you're making sure that what your practice management system says, what your bank account says, and your accounting software says are all saying the exact same thing. And so there's no confusion, and if something were to fall through the cracks, you know exactly where to pinpoint it. When you go 3 months back and your dishes are piled up, it's very difficult to find out what happened, and it really never gets back to being accurate again. And so to have this set up this way, where you are not focused on it, but it's being done in real time and being accurate, is where you start to actually get some value from your financial system. And so the way we kind of explain it is that you focus on your clients and your firm, and the numbers are then brought to you. So the second piece of this simple financial system is to have reports on demand. And so this is kind of the byproduct of having your bookkeeping and data entry done on autopilot and done in real time, is then you have reports on demand. So for most people, if you need financial reports, and there's a lot of situations that are unusual that you may need financial reports. If you need to get a loan, if you need to even do something personal like get a home loan, if you're a business owner, you're going to need to produce those financial reports. And so for many, that can be stressful. It can take multiple months to get those. And then most practically, you're going to need your financial reports at tax time. So we're getting there. This year will be wrapping up very soon, and you're going to need those financial reports. And so for many, that becomes this whole process of going through transactions that happened, in May of 2017, and it's a disaster. So when you have bookkeeping and data entry on autopilot, you can have reports on demand at the click of a button. So that can be good. Not only it's tax time, I need these things, and so the reports are handed over on a platter for tax time, and that's great. But it also comes into play when you need guidance for your firm. And the stuff we get into in a minute is going to talk about how your financial reports are not only a way to keep you compliant and keep you, with peace of mind that nothing's falling through the cracks, but can also guide you to know how to create more cash flow, know how to produce more revenue, more profitability, and that's where things come to the next level. If you're always looking 3 months back, you're not going to be able to have that. And so these two really develop the foundation of the simple financial system. The bookkeeping and data entry on autopilot, where you, the lawyer, are out of it, and these things happen behind the scenes, and you then are able to get reports on demand. So now you imagine the change here for the attorney's role when you can put this system into place. Going from where accounting is taking up a lot of time, not providing any value, and you're dealing with the day-to-day, to you are spending very little time on it, but you're focusing on serving clients and growing your firm, and then you're getting these reports handed over to you, and you're keeping your finger on the pulse without getting into the numbers. That's a major shift in what that looks like for your day-to-day and how you approach accounting. So now we're going to kind of speed through the rest of this because we're going to go into more depth in these future ones. But once you're able to have the kind of foundation in place, then you have to clearly define your position and your destination. So you start looking forward and thinking, where do I want to go? In order to do that, you first have to know, where am I currently? What's the true financial reality that this business is in? And then where do I want it to be 12 months, 18 months down the road? And then you can start to architect a path to get there. Once you have that path, then you can identify 3 to 5 key drivers. This is all part of the simplification process. So for most people, you look at all these numbers and you just drown in a bunch of numbers. Well, in anything, if you look at where you are right now and where you want to be 12 months from now, there are really only going to be 3 to 5 key levers or key drivers that are going to determine whether or not you get there. And so when you can put together a budget and say, this is where I want to be, you can start to laser in on what are the 3 to 5 things I really, really need to watch. Like, my accounting system is going to provide reporting on everything, but I, as the firm's owner and CEO, am going to know that these are the 3 to 5 things I've got to watch very, very closely, because they're going to determine whether I'm on track or off track to hitting my goals. So you project that forward, and then the hard part in this, then you have the real-time accountability. So when you have forward-looking projections, this is where I want to be 12 months from now. These are my 3 to 5 key drivers that are being reported on every single month. Did I hit the goals? Did I not hit the goals? Then you have accountability that's showing you, am I on track or off track? And so then you can make adjustments in real time. And so you think about the attorney who was finding out in September 2017 that her 2016 revenue was way behind 2015. This is what we're avoiding here. Now we're going to know in March of 2018 if we're on track or off track to hitting our 2018 goals. And so if we're finding out that we're off track, we can make those adjustments in real time to make sure we get there. And then you just keep adjusting and optimizing. And this is where it gets really, really powerful, and I'm going to go into it more in the next sessions. But for today, what's important is everything below reports on demand you can't have unless you figure out number 1 and number 2. Because if your bookkeeping and data entry are not happening and you're not getting reports on demand and you're not getting everything tied out, you can't do anything else because it'll all be meaningless. And so that's why we have to start here with the painful stuff on getting it cleaned up and getting accurate information in, because once you have that, then the possibilities grow from there. So number two in this, so step one is simplify and to come up with that simple system. Once you have that, it's time to focus in and actually make stuff happen, make these things meaningful. Just to recap, this is the simple system. Number one and number two is what we're focusing on today. And then once you're able to do that, here's kind of the way this progresses. And you can guess what we're going to talk about today because it's going to be the negative part, of course. But the way this progresses with having a good financial system is the first thing you have to do is confront your financial reality. You deal with reality, what's really going on. Then you can start to build a safety net, and your financial system and reporting will help you in producing profitability, producing excess cash flow, creating a safety net so you can start to multiply your efforts. And then once you do that, you can project forward and you can actually take control, be proactive, and grow your business intentionally and enjoy financial success. Whatever that looks like for you, you can actually make that happen rather than reacting and operating with everything just kind of drifting along and going month after month after month and then seeing where you are. You can actually architect a path to getting where you want to go. The first thing you have to do to get there is confront your financial reality. So that's what we're going to focus on today because today is the day of dealing with nightmares and challenges and things like that. But to do this, to really get a handle on your financials and to really get to the type of clarity that I'm talking about today, you have to confront it. You have to deal with where am I right now? What is actually going on? And you have to remove emotion from it because it can be painful, and you have to confront the brutal facts. There's a book that I want to recommend to you guys because I just finished it and it's really good. It came out very recently. It's called Principles by Ray Dalio, and he talks a lot about this, about being brutally honest and about creating a culture and environment where you can accept feedback and accept it in a way where you actually are happy to have it. Most of us don't really want the brutal facts. We may say that we want accountability and we want people to be honest with us, but really when people are honest with you or when numbers are honest with you, a lot of times we'd actually rather avoid them. Like we want people to be honest with us when they're going to be positive, but when it's something negative, we really try to avoid it. This book is really good at helping kind of make sense of that and kind of get a little bit thicker skin. And actually at the end of this, when I have something for you, I'm going to give away 3 of these books to people. So it's really, really good, and I'm happy to share it. So you have to confront the financial reality. I said it before, but everybody says I'm not a numbers person. But you do have to be somewhat numbers aware because cash flow is really what keeps your business alive. It's like if Tom Brady said, I'm not a numbers person, but he may not be, but he knows the scoreboard. Like he knows what he has to do to win. He knows how much time is left on the clock. He knows the things he has to know to make sure he wins. And so for you in leading a law firm, and even if you're a solo attorney, you're leading it for yourself, for your family, you have to know the numbers in the game. You have to know the scoreboard in the game, and it's even more important when you have a team that is relying on you. You have to know these things, and so you don't get blindsided. So you have to confront your financial reality, and a couple discerning questions just to think about that is to understand how many months of cash are on hand currently. What do you expect to happen in the next 6 months? Like, do you have an expectation for how much money the firm will produce, how much growth will happen? And for our purposes today, we'll spend some time thinking about this. How simple or painful has tax time been every year? Is it something you dread? This is a discerning question to confront your financial reality. If it's something you dread, then there's probably some issues with how things are organized, how things are being dealt with, because it shouldn't be that way. It should be simplified and something that I'm never going to say look forward to, but it can be just like any other month. Tax time doesn't have to be something to dread. And so when you confront your financial reality, you do a couple things. You get yourself organized, you understand where you currently are, and then you're actually able to move things forward. And what's great about everything we're talking about here is when you get the financial foundation in place, it doesn't have to be a painful thing. Most things where we're getting into like real accountability and real challenging and confronting the brutal facts, like if you can put the simplified system into place, take yourself out of some of the day-to-day, you're actually going to have some breathing room to actually look at your business from a high level rather than from the micro level where you get no value and you can't really see what's going on. And so the final section here, and again, I'm going to go quick through this because this is mainly focused on the foundation, but is understanding the financial habits of the pros. Like, what does the CEO, lawyer, business owner look like, and how their relationship is to their financials. Just to recap, the goal for today is for numbers to be a clarifying guide to take your firm where you want to go. And to do that, you have to simplify your system, which is our main goal. Then focus on the things that matter. What are those 3 to 5 key levers that you can drive? And then the third thing is to act like a financial pro. What does that action look like? What do those habits look like? And so taking it all back to the beginning, when you think about fitness and you think about New Year's and you think about people who have motivation and they have goals and they have these commitments, what is it that keeps us from following through? It's really the habits. What are the habits of a financial pro that make sure we achieve what we want to achieve? So here's a cool quote that is in the brutally honest category once again, but I really like it. It says, "If you're drowning, don't blame the water." And this is a pretty cool proverb, and I use this a lot. And it's pretty self-explanatory, but what it means is if you're in a situation where you're in a problem, you're in a challenge, it doesn't do you much good to complain and blame everything around you. There's a reason why you're in the situation you're in. Like if you're drowning, blaming the water and being mad about what the water is doing to you in that moment doesn't really help. It's better to think about what led to me becoming in this situation? Like, why am I in this place? And so it's the same thing with your accounting. If it's bad and if you decide to confront the brutal facts and look at where things are and what is actually going on and how much time are you wasting and how much value are you getting from the numbers, to blame the water and the situation that you're in doesn't do much good. It's better to look at, okay, how did it get there and what are some things I can do to avoid it? You have to be motivated to get there. We already talked about that. And just a reminder, this is how you simplify it. So today we're just going to focus on as far as what do we do next. We're not going to blame the water. We're going to talk about how to simplify this. So today, this is all you need to think about is taking the steps to put bookkeeping and data entry on autopilot. And so I think I talked through that. You need to have a time and billing practice management system that you can get bills out of that then can sync to your accounting software. And this is something that we at Kahuna can help with, or you can find someone in your office that can own this part of it, that can take you out of it, that can handle pulling the data from the practice management, from the bank, making sure everything is matched up, and getting reports on demand. Get to the point where you can focus on your clients and your firm, and you have the numbers just handed over to you. So what you have to do now is be brutally honest about your current situation. Take a look at how has tax season been these last several years, or even last year, or even what it's looking like this year. How regularly do you look at your numbers? And if you're not looking at them, is it because they're completely meaningless to what you're trying to do? Make a decision to make everything simple, to get the roles figured out, the systems figured out, and most importantly, we are in the end of November, believe it or not, which for me means last weekend I spent putting up Christmas lights with my hands numb. Chelsea's in Miami, so she doesn't know what that's like anymore because she left the Midwest. But we are at this time of year where we are having holiday. Chelsea, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, no. it is nice down here, but I don't get to see the snow. So
it's not true Christmas, but we're not too late. We're in November. There's still time to get things cleaned up before the end of the year, and that's something that we at Kahuna can do, where we work through what does your practice management system say, what does your bank account say, and let's get that organized before the end of the year, behind the scenes, so that we can make a simple tax time and set up a system for success in 2018, which I'll talk about in our next webinar next week. And so that's all I have for this. I do want to invite you to head to this link, kahunaaccounting.com/LexTech. Shout out to Chelsea and LexTech for having me on. On that page, you can see kind of what we do at the end of the year. and we invite you to fill out the form at the bottom of the page to set up a strategy session with us. So that strategy session, we can talk through what's going on, what is the brutal reality of your business, what's going on, how could we help, or how could we help point you in the right direction to where you can get this organized and get this simplified by the end of the year. So you're set up for 2018. I did want to mention we have some bonuses because just being honest, we get a lot of people reaching out this time of year, as you can understand, because it's getting close to tax time. And so if you sign up in November, and I don't mean sign up for services, but just fill out the form for an appointment, if you do end up signing up, we're going to give you a bonus business valuation. So in terms of knowing where you stand, we will go through this process with a 42-page report that tells you the exact value of your business, where it benchmarks with others, and kind of helps you have an understanding of what's going on in your law firm. Also, the first 3 that fill out the form, I'm going to mail the Ray Dalio book to. So if you're interested, do that, and we got some cool bonuses. But I think we also have a little bit of time for questions. So Chelsea, I'll let you guide the questions.
Absolutely. So we have some time for questions, and I just want to add on a couple of thoughts here is that, just coming into this as a business owner myself, it's been a really big shift for me. I had the great pleasure of being forced to use QuickBooks since I was 14, so I have an innate hatred for it, which I think we've talked about. And so it really is shifting that mentality from, I'm not a numbers person, well, I am a money person, right? So when you start thinking about it in terms of how those financials and having these things in order, I had a realization about 2 months into my business that my cash flow needed to be 2 or 3 times what it was to sustain and to continue to allow me to do things like pay taxes and invest in retirement and those types of things that we have to be conscious and aware of as business owners, that nobody's just going to come and tell you, right? You think that you're making money and you're able to pay yourself a little bit or have a comfortable life. It's not actually covering all of those other things, which switching from just kind of a maintenance mode of, okay, I reconciled or I recorded my expenses and I'm barely going to squeeze by and be able to file my taxes within the extension date is not a sustainable business practice. And I've gone through this transition myself. So that was one of the reasons, I reached out to you and said, hey, we really need to talk about this, because it's one thing to go through the motions and maintain, and it's another to take control of your business as an owner, and it becomes really, really exciting, right? Now I look at financials and I look at numbers in a totally different way. I'm able to get excited about business development and excited about growing my business, because I know that if I bring in a certain amount of clients, that now I'm going to be able to do all of these things, maybe put a little bit of extra into my my retirement or investment accounts at the end of the year. Or
that's awesome. You get excited about the numbers. That's cool.
Right.
You're right, though. I think you're right. The maintenance mode is kind of, for a lot of people, it's just a necessary evil to survive and just kind of get it over with. And that's a totally different mindset when you're actually using it to your advantage.
Absolutely. Or invest in things for your family. I'm coming up on a move here at the end of the year, and that was really all due to the fact that I finally got my mind and my hands around my financials. And I was like, okay, well, instead of just going through making ends meet or hitting those certain minimal numbers every single month, what would happen if we ramped up and did X, Y, Z by the end of the year? I would be able to buy a house and take care of my family in a way that I have never been able to do in my entire career. And that comes 100% of just facing it. I hate accounting. And it's just facing the mountain and going through that really painful, it was a really, really painful month and a half where I had to dig through a bunch of stuff and answer a bunch of questions and all of that. But now I have this plan, and I feel like I'm totally in control, and the accountability has shifted. It's not like you're feeling guilty or you have this subconscious, like, you know, cloud hanging over you because you haven't finished what you needed to finish and there's a mountain of work. It's actually like this proactive, if I go out and get a certain number of clients, or if I hit these numbers, not only do I have the funds to pay for somebody to help me who knows what they're doing, which one of the reasons I selected you guys for the buyer's guide is because it's not just about knowing how to run law firm financials and to run law firm reports. It's about seeing hundreds of law firms all over the country and being able to benchmark you so that you get that really, it's like the most valuable information. Like they talk about, you know, what's the greatest commodity in the Wall Street movie is like information, right? Like, so it's how much information you have about where you should be. Is this how a normal estate planning firm is functioning? Is this, you know, the typical costs and fees that you see with criminal defense firms? Like what you guys are bringing to the table is much more than just those services. It's, hey, we can save money here by switching to X or what, you know. And then the other thing that I just wanted to throw in, which we have a couple questions from the audience about systems, right? So, you know, what system, QuickBooks versus Xero, you know, which we could go on about for hours, but, you know, I know that you have a unique, that you have a perspective on this.
Yes. Well, we get this question all the time, and that's one of the most common things that comes up is like, well, what should I use, or what do you guys prefer? We spent most of our time as Xero exclusive for our firm, and that was just kind of the 5 years ago, you know, in terms of cloud accounting. I think Xero was kind of leading the pack. Since then, we've gone over to the dark side, and we now work with QuickBooks Online, and we like it a lot, so it kind of feels weird to say that, but we work with both. And whenever we get this question, though, and even when we were still doing Xero, we answered it like Xero exclusively, we answered it the same way. And the question is, it doesn't really matter. Like as far as accounting software goes, if an attorney is asking me that question, my answer is always going to be it does not matter. Like you should not ever even be in the system. You should be, you know, focusing on getting billed. Everything I said before, you know, working with your clients, growing the business, getting reports delivered to you. The one place where it comes, because both systems do the same thing, and some people love one and hate the other, and their reasons are all different, but they do the same thing. And so what you need to find, if you're working with a bookkeeper, use what they like, you know, because they're the ones doing it. The only other thing that you need to take into account is if you have a practice management system that you're very happy with, that you're invoicing from, take a look at what it integrates with. That is important. So for some, like I know Clio will integrate with both. So in that case, I don't think it really matters. If you're using MyCase, it only integrates with QuickBooks Online. It does not integrate with Xero. And so you would want to take that into account because it's going to be an extra step. But overall, that whole question, I think is the wrong question. I think if you're working with a practice management system that you like and that you're very happy with, that's the most important thing. Whoever's handling the bookkeeping side of things, they can deal with that in the accounting software, and you as the attorney, it's not going to matter. Like when you see the reports, you're not going to know what they came from. And even working with CPAs, like if your CPA will take reports for taxes, they will do taxes the same way, whether the reports came from QuickBooks or Xero, and they'll know what to look for and what to find. So it doesn't really matter is kind of my answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, and knowing you guys, it's like if anybody were to come to them with questions and like, here's my, you know, what I like to call like your stack of software or your group of tools. I mean, I have like 5, like some people pay me through PayPal, some people pay me through my processing system, some people pay me via check. It's just like, let's just get everything, like bring that box of receipts, bring that stack of papers, whatever you have, and let's just get a handle on it. And like you said, it's about creating that seamless system. So I know we have a couple more questions. So about how many hours per month does, you know, wrangling accounting or getting bookkeeping under control for a law firm that's, say, like doing less than $250,000 a year?
Oh, geez. Well, I don't know. That's a really interesting question, because if you were like going all in and doing it all, gosh, hours per month, I don't even know.
Well, I think that question is actually, it depends on who's doing it. right?
Right, and what happens though is like it's too many is really the answer. It's too many because you start doing it and then you realize like I don't have enough time, and so you don't do all the things you need to do, and then it gets behind. That's really, I mean, it can be a lot, and some people are going to pick it up and move faster than others. But really, even if you were able to keep track of it all and do it all yourself, it's too much time to be spending on these things.
What I realized for people who are wondering this is what I realized is how much more money could I be making in the time instead of spending it, doing all my own reconciliation and things like that. I can actually, the multiplier is much higher after I took that off. Yeah, I took that off.
That's something we've started with our reporting, and it's not just bookkeeping, but starting to pull out your employees that are billable. What are their hours being spent on? Because that's a pretty big metric to understand as a law firm, and it's unbelievable how many hours are spent on things that are not bringing in revenue. And so that, to me, that makes no sense because it's just money that's going out the door. And bookkeeping is one of the things that happens with people that could be out generating revenue are doing these things that could be mostly automated.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Micky, this has been fantastic. I really look forward to the next session that we have coming up here next week. Oh my gosh, right away. And so if anybody wants to take advantage, which I encourage you to do so, of the free strategy session with Kahuna, you can do so at the link here. We'll also email this back out to everybody along with a recording of today's session, so you can share it with anyone else in your firm or colleagues that you think might find it valuable. Micky, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to close out today's session with?
No, just I'm thankful that everyone came on. Appreciate it. And next week we'll be way more positive. We'll talk about some fun stuff, not all the negative.
Yeah. Then we get into what the numbers can actually do for you, business owner, which is really exciting, really exciting, and the things you can do for your family. So
absolutely.
Thanks, Micky.
Thanks a lot, Chelsea.
Next week. Yep.
All right. See you soon. Bye.
Have a great afternoon.